Welcome to Insights. I'm Dick Goldberg, and our subject today, getting the most out of being a volunteer. Do you know that about 60 million Americans volunteer? That's somewhere between 1 out of 3 and 1 out of 4 Americans, depending on what study you look at. Well, today we'll look at the subject of why work for nothing. And if you are motivated to volunteer, how do you find a good, enriching fit for you? With me today is Kathy Martinson. She is the Director of Volunteering at the United Way of Dane County. She's been in this position for 28 years. She's helped 500,000 people volunteer. So she really, hopefully, can fill us in on volunteering. Thanks for being with us, Kathy.
My pleasure.
Let me ask you a silly question that I referred to. Why bother volunteering when you can get paid for your time?
Well, there's lots of good reasons. One reason is people who volunteer live longer.
Oh?
There's one good reason.
That's interesting. Why?
Because they are doing things that they feel good about themselves. They feel good about helping others in the community, and they're out of the house. They're doing things. They're active. Their mind is engaged. Their body's engaged, and because they're making a difference, it makes you healthier.
Wow.
Yeah.
How do you know they're not just healthy people who volunteer?
There's been a study. So there has been a study done that followed people. I think it started, they followed people over the course of about 10 years, and maybe even longer than that, took out all the other factors that might affect their health, and found that people who were volunteering and continued to volunteer for a period of time were healthier at the end of that study, healthier, or at least as healthy as when they started the study.
Well, that is really great. Is this mainly for retired people who have time on their hands?
No, although that is a really good group to be volunteering, but really volunteering is for everybody. We work with kids who are in grade school all the way up to folks who are late in their years, and there's just something for everybody. And I think no matter what age you are, there's different things that people want to do, different reasons to volunteer, different things you get out of it. But it truly is, it is for everybody.
Okay, this is sounding like a commercial now, so I have to make the subject a little more credible. What is a wrong reason for volunteering?
A wrong reason for volunteering.
You've never been asked that.
I have not been asked it that way, so that's a very good question. A wrong reason for volunteering is because somebody told you you have to do it.
Have you ever seen that happen?
Yes. It doesn't work out so well. Sometimes it does, where you need that little nudge to volunteer. It might be a parent telling their child they should go out and volunteer. It could be people who are court-ordered, and it's community service volunteering, and it's so to speak.
Sure.
But I think what happens is if that's the impetus for them to get involved, then it was something that we really try hard to do, is to say, everybody cares about something. So even though you're being told you have to volunteer, then find something that you want to do, because if you have to do it, you may as well enjoy it. And find something that's interesting to you, and then it'll turn out to be a better experience.
Let me suggest another kind of wrong direction that I've always thought people shouldn't take. Like, they say, well, I really care about health care, so I'll work at a hospital as a volunteer, versus what would I enjoy doing at the hospital? You know of what I speak?
Yes, I do. And to me, and this always sounds sort of strange when I talk to folks about this, but I think the first thing people should think about is they should be picky. Because they are giving their free time, and we don't have a lot of free time. And so if we're going to give that up, we should get something out of that experience as well. And I don't mean that in a selfish way, that you're not going to get paid the big bucks, or it's not having your name on a big plaque that's going to be somewhere, but it's personally, what will you get out of the experience? And so I think that's a place to start. And then also thinking about what you do want to do. So as you say, rather than just saying, I'm going to go to the hospital and volunteer, what things do you enjoy doing? What things don't you like to do? Because if you don't like doing something, why the heck do it as a volunteer?
Right.
So again, there's so much to choose from that you can sort of have that self-talk going on, and then find those things that are going to be the most satisfying to you, because then you're going to be a better volunteer. So it's not really just being selfish. It's if you like what you're doing, then you're going to want to keep doing it. You're going to do a good job at it. And so the organization you're volunteering for is going to benefit too, because you're a really good volunteer.
Right. So you don't want to just go roll bandages in a room by yourself all day because you want to help people.
Right.
If you don't enjoy the process.
Exactly.
So you have to enjoy the process. But your answer about being a volunteer makes you healthy and happy and live longer. What about if you did the same thing for money? Wouldn't you live longer and be richer?
I think people who find that kind of fulfillment in their paid jobs are very fortunate, and I am one of them.
Mm-hmm.
So I know I have the best job, and that's why I've been doing it for 28 years. I think people are very fortunate, but I think through volunteering, you feel more of a sense of commitment or responsibility to the greater community. Mm-hmm. So when you're in your job and you're doing a great job at where you work, that's really important. And if you feel where you work is their values are good, you agree with their values, they're good corporate citizens and all of that, that's wonderful.
Yeah.
But I think volunteering takes that a step further to say, you know, I'm a part, not just part of where I work every day and where I go home every night, I am a part of this greater community, and I have a responsibility to do something to make it better.
Yeah, okay.
Because we all live here, so we want it to be a better place.
So even if your work is enriching and you're helping people in your day job, you can still get that feeling from a volunteer job.
Mm-hmm. And it exposes you to different situations, maybe different areas of your community that you don't normally go to or get to, or meeting people that you wouldn't have an opportunity to meet otherwise because they're not in your regular circle. And so to me, it just really extends our sense of community, the people we know, the experiences that we're having, and kind of opens your eyes to different situations.
Okay. So in comes the client customer. Where do you begin to help them figure out what is the right volunteer opportunity for them?
We talk a lot about what issues are important to a person because, again, everybody cares about something. If it's the environment, if it's homelessness, if it's kids succeeding in school, if it's older adults being independent and having a good quality of life, if it's animals, you know, whatever it is, we all care about something in our community. So that's one of the first things we talk about. What issues or causes are important to you? What would you like to do something about if you could? And also trying to pare that down a bit, because somebody might say, well, I really care about kids succeeding in school, but you know the academic achievement gap is so high. And what the heck could I do as one person?
Well, let's take a look at that. Let's go with that. So you've got a person who comes to you and says, I really hate to see the minority kids doing so badly. Half of them not finishing high school, and 10% of white kids don't finish, or something very, very different. What's the next question you want to ask them, or questions to find the right place for that?
Well, so that's important to know that piece of it, and then the questions become, what would you like to do about that? I mean, what are you comfortable doing? Are you comfortable sitting with a kid and helping them learn to read, or doing math in middle school, which can be kind of scary. Middle school and math are kind of a scary subject sometimes. But so, would you like that? I mean, is that the way you can help? And some people might say, no, I really don't feel comfortable doing that, so I guess I can't help. It's like, well, no, there are other things that you can do. So we talk about, how do you want to do your volunteer work? Do you want to be doing direct service? Do you want to be around a lot of other people? Do you want to do something on your own? Do you want to volunteer? How much time can you commit? Because if you're going to be a tutor for a child, you need to make a weekly commitment, because what that kid, or a mentor, that kid needs that continuity of somebody being in their life. So can you make that kind of time commitment? So it's exploring those sorts of personal criteria of how you want to volunteer, how much time you feel you can give, without really getting into specifics about you should do this or offering a bunch of options. It's more, let's explore what you want to do and how you want to do it. Yeah. And then let's see what fits with that.
Okay, so let's say this person says, you know, I don't think I work well with kids, but I think the cause is important, and I hate to see these kids getting such a tough start and being doomed to a lousy life in some ways. So it's the cause I care about, but I'm not good with kids. What could they do?
It depends on the community. I mean, some places, there might be some fundraising events that are going on to raise money to buy school supplies. Or maybe within their company they could do a donation drive for school supplies or books. Or maybe there's a leadership team in the community that's looking, or within the school, that's sort of looking at this issue and what, besides maybe tutoring or even putting a tutoring program in place, they may not have something like that. So again, it depends what the person would want to do. So there's some of the behind-the-scenes kinds of things. There might be some leadership positions. There might be mobilizing people within their neighborhood to do something. So again, there are just a variety of things.
That's great. This is very hopeful. Let's talk about the extrovert and the introvert. Now, an extrovert, my clinical hat here, is a person who gets their energy from people, an introvert from ideas and things.
Mm-hmm.
Do you ask people about that? Do you get a sense of if they're extroverts or introverts when they come to you for...
Yeah, and we don't give them a test per se, but there are those different tests you can do. But we do talk about that, and that sort of gets back to saying, how do you want to do your volunteering? Do you like being around a lot of other people? Mm-hmm. We might ask, what has been your favorite job, or when you've been the most fulfilled, either in a previous volunteer position or in your job? What does that situation look like? How has that been? I mean, is it that you're digging down into a project and you're just focused and you love it, and then you sort of ta-da, and I've got this done, and then you present it to somebody? Or do you get, more motivation of being around a lot of other people and being busy and in a noisy environment? We even talk about what kind of an agency they might want to work at. If it's a nonprofit, that's, do they like being in a more well-established organization where things are pretty well set and there's good procedures and everything's in place? Or do they want to just get their hands dirty and get involved in a grassroots organization where they're just going to be there, where things are a little bit messy?
Wow, that's a lot of stuff. This
is
great.
Yeah.
How is this different than the job search? You go to a career counselor saying, I don't know what I want to do with my life. Help me. Is it any different?
It's not much different. It really isn't. I mean, I don't know that people have the luxury of thinking about all those things and then making a choice of what they're going to do in a job. I mean, depending on what the job market is like, where you are, you might not have those types, so many different options available. But I think if people can do that with themselves, with a job coach, with a counselor, and then find a job that meets, again, the kind of that personal criteria, those things that are going to make you happy in your work, that is ideal.
Yeah.
But we don't always have that choice. And so, again...
Even as a volunteer, you don't have that choice?
No, as a volunteer, you do. So that's where you can get that fix if you can't get it in your job.
Isn't that great? So I'm hearing two benefits of volunteering over working. One is more of a sense of contributing to your community, or an additional sense from your job. And two, you're more likely to find your dream job. You just don't get paid for it. Is that what I'm hearing?
You do. And another third part of it is sometimes you can do a hobby through volunteering. So we don't always have time, or we might feel a little guilty about spending time if it's photography or gardening or taking a tour through a museum. But if you can do that as a volunteer, it's like legitimate. And you're doing something for the community. Plus, you get to hang out and do a hobby that you may not have time to do otherwise.
You're a great cheerleader for this subject. Let's say you got a hobby of photography, like you mentioned. How does that translate to volunteer opportunity?
Well, we've engaged volunteer photographers at a lot of our events for our organization. And so then those are put on our website or in marketing materials. So, having somebody who has good photography skills versus a bunch of staff trying to get some photos here and there, and they don't always turn out quite as well. So,
do you send them out to things other than your functions? Can they connect with agencies that need an occasional photographer?
Absolutely. I mean, agencies need the same sort of thing, and that's how we've utilized them. But certainly agencies need volunteer photographers at events. If it's a nature preserve or botanical gardens or something like, to be taking some of those beautiful pictures that might be put up on display or sold. It could be, if you're a really good photographer and you take some beautiful pictures, maybe there's a fundraising event you could donate those to, and then that can help raise money for that organization too.
I'm going to share with you an interesting fact I discovered a while back about retirement. When men retire and women retire, there's different correlates with their happiness. Women, it has more to do with the quality, if they're married, of their marriage and their friendships. And men, it has to do with their identity when they retire from a full-time job to zero work. And studies that I saw reflect that men who use their skills that they had in their work in either half-time or volunteerism remain happier. Men who don't and play golf or whatever, or fish for 6 months, are fine for 6 months, then they get depressed and stay depressed. So I guess I have two questions from that. If you are a lawyer, a doctor, whatever, and you want to do some volunteer work, are you better off when you retire to use those skills, or do you think for most people they want to do something totally different?
I think it depends. Like a lot of things, it depends on the person. Some people, even when they're working and they want to volunteer, and again, we ask that of folks, do you want to do what you do every day, Or do you want to do something completely
Okay,
different?
so they're still working. Let's say you get a lawyer.
And a lawyer who's retired. Same thing. I mean, if you really enjoy that and that's a feeling of fulfillment to keep that skill sharp, keep using that. And some people are more comfortable doing what they know. And so they would like to continue to use that skill. Nonprofit, another area that we do a lot of work in is nonprofit development, because a lot of folks come into the nonprofit sector as employees more through the social service side of things versus the business side of things. And so they don't always have the business skills that they need. But they need those to run an effective organization. So an attorney coming in and providing his skills, or an accountant, or somebody who was in marketing in their paid job and now is retired, to be able to bring those skills to a nonprofit really helps that organization be a stronger organization, more effective and efficient, a better steward of the donors' dollars, and just people are going to have a better experience with that organization. So offering those professional skills to a nonprofit helps the person. I think it helps them, like you say, kind of still feel fulfilled, and that they haven't lost those skills, and have sort of a purpose to their daily life. And then it helps the nonprofit a lot.
Years ago, 30 years ago, I was in transition and had some time. And I was thinking of coming to your agency and seeing if you could help me fill that time in an enriching way. And I thought, nah, they're just going to have me do straight volunteer work and not use all my, we all think we have wonderful skills to offer.
Yeah.
And they won't find a place for me. But do you feel like whatever your profession, whatever your skills, there's a place for you?
I do. And this is an area that has evolved over the past several years, where both we're seeing folks who are retired and want to continue to use their professional skills, and also nonprofits being more open to having those business, it's not a dirty word anymore, to bring business skills, the business world, into nonprofits. With funding being tight, and it's changing, donors being more savvy about wanting to make sure that their dollars are going to an effective and efficient organization. Nonprofits have to be run more like a business, with the passion. You don't lose the passion and the cause, but you need to be an effective organization, because more people will be attracted to you. You're going to get the grants. You're going to get better donations.
You need those skills.
You do. So there's more openness to that. So I think that's an area that has really evolved, and is really exciting, I think, both for the person who has those skills to donate, to volunteer their time, and then also for the nonprofit to benefit from those.
I think would be a problem, though. Someone wants to learn skills they don't have, and they say, put me in this area because I want to learn all about that. How do you handle that?
That is a problem, and some people see this. I mean, I do believe volunteerism is a great resume builder, and I think everybody, no matter what you do as a volunteer, should take the skills that you have learned and put that on your resume.
Yeah.
And especially true for younger people who don't have a lot of job experience. But some people might say, well, I'm thinking of doing this as a job, and so I'd like to volunteer doing it. There are sometimes when you can do that. Let's say you want to get into early childhood development. You could volunteer in a daycare center. You could read to kids and just see if you even like being around little kids or not, and how you do with that. And then you have some job experience to put on your resume, or you might go on to school for that. But there are some things, and what a nonprofit needs to do is be clear about if there are any skills you need to come into the job with. And so we talk a lot with the nonprofits about having job descriptions for each position that they have, which includes not only what you're going to do, but are there skills that you need to have coming in? What kind of training will you get? Because there's excellent training that's provided,
so
too.
You're describing this job opening, quote-unquote job.
So it's like a job description like we would have for our paid jobs. And then also what the benefits are. Now, it's not going to be the salary, but there are other benefits you gain. So this should all go on the job description, how much time, what the time commitment is. So getting back to, if you can use it as a way to develop skills, yes, but there are some positions you need to come in with a certain level of skill. But I'd say for most of it, you're going to get the training you need, and then you build those skills that you need, and then it can be a career exploration opportunity as well.
If you had to bet, do you think people who are working and volunteering, if they were writing in their diary at night about what was meaningful this week in their work or their life, are they more likely to think the volunteer thing was more meaningful, or their work?
I would think they'd say their volunteering is. I mean, they might feel satisfied and about something that they accomplished in their work. Now, maybe it was a big project and there was some nice accolade and something they're really excited about in their job that happened that day or that week. I think people would write about that as well, because we should feel excited about our jobs and things that we've done.
Yeah.
But I think that when you sort of reflect on your day and your life and what you've done, I think it's at volunteering. I mean, I think we write about our families in our diaries, and we write about relationships and feelings. And so those feelings, that feeling part of us, is what we get through our volunteering.
Let me give you some tough challenges. Okay, in comes a person who says, I'm a poet. I love poetry. Can you connect me using my poetry skills? And of course, they haven't published any poetry, and who's to know if they're really skilled as a poet? Or I love singing and playing guitar. Can you help these people?
Sure. I mean, sure. What we and
You're so positive.
Our work is really helping folks connect with other organizations in the community. So, I mean, we certainly engage a lot of volunteers within our organization, but then a lot of it is helping people explore what they want to do, and then knowing what other opportunities exist in the community. So we're sort of a clearinghouse and a liaison for that. And it's really up to organizations, and this gets a little tricky, so I'm not going to make it sound like this is just cut and dried, but you interview folks who want to volunteer for you, and it's a mutual interview. I mean, if you wanted to volunteer with me, I'd ask you all these great questions about yourself. You should be asking me a lot of questions, and mutually we decide if it's a good fit or not. So you're interviewing me, I'm interviewing you. I need to be very clear about, this is really what we need. We need somebody who is comfortable performing in front of a group of 100 people. Have you done that before? Or I need somebody who can write an article for our newsletter. Can you show me some samples of your writing? And it is perfectly fine for me to ask that of you.
Well, that's great.
And again, because we want it to be a quality experience for both of us.
So there's a place for a writer, but I'm hearing maybe not a poet.
A poet, it depends. I have seen poetry in some newsletters. Depends. I mean, there's some senior centers, senior coalitions that who have newsletters that I've seen some nice poetry in those. I've seen some in some environmental publications as well. So, yeah, I think there is.
How often do you get people bouncing back to you saying, I really don't like what you set me up with. I want something else?
Unfortunately, I think what happens sometimes is oftentimes when people don't have a good experience, they don't come back to us. I think they just stop. They just say, well, that didn't work out, and I've got other things I can do now.
I would like our listeners to learn from others' mistakes so they don't make the same mistakes. So can you speculate at what the biggest mistakes our volunteers make when they pick their volunteer opportunity so people don't make those mistakes?
I think sometimes people overcommit. I've had people come to me and say, I have 20, 30 hours a week, and I can do this and that for you. And I would rather if somebody do one thing really, really well and then see how that goes, and because you can always expand. But it's really hard when you overcommit, and I've seen people who might overcommit to several organizations where they are on 5 boards, and they're doing tutoring, and they're doing something else, and they have a family, and they go to church, and then they have a job.
Overcommit.
And so a lot of times they'll say, I just got to stop everything, versus, okay, I'm going to stop this one or thing. They just say, I just need like a timeout from volunteering. So I think to be really honest with yourself about how much time you can commit. And again, if you love what you're doing, there's always more to do.
Okay. Any other things besides overcommitment that are mistakes when you pick a volunteer opportunity?
I think you can also, might be getting involved with not the wrong organization, but more the wrong type of organization. So again, if you want to be in that messy startup organization, more grassroots versus a more established, and it could be either or of those. So I think to think about, again, what kind of an organization you want to be involved with. How is it structured? What's the environment like? Okay. Where are they in their development and their evolution? And just to do some homework and ask good questions about an organization to see if that agency is a good fit.
What about not being selfish enough when you volunteer in terms of what's good for you versus what's a good cause?
I think that can be a problem as well, because if you don't like what you're doing, so if you say, I really don't care what I do, I love what your organization does, I'll do anything for you, and I say, well, really, the only thing we've got coming up for the next few months is we've got some big events coming up, and we mail out all of our invitations, and so we need you to just stuff a bunch of envelopes like every week for the next month or a couple months. And the person, oh, okay, and they just hate it. They're miserable. They take it home to do, and that is not at all what they had wanted to do. Even though they meant it, I'll do anything for you because I'm just here
such
to
a
help.
good cause.
Yeah. So again, it's not being picky enough to say, really, is that what I want to do? Is that going to be fulfilling for me? I mean, I might not mind doing that once,
right? But
that's not what I want to do. What I want to be known for as a volunteer in your organization.
So it gets back to almost where we started in the beginning. I suspected that. That's the biggest mistake. Not thinking in your heart, what would be a process that would enrich you?
Yeah.
And how much of the enrichment do you think? How much of the kick is the networking you do, the people you meet?
I think that's a big part of it. Again, if that's what you want. Some people might be in a chaotic environment all day long at their job, and what they want to do is just sit at a desk somewhere in a little quiet space and do something and do that. But to me, the beauty of it is the people you get to meet. Again, it might be, depending how large a community is, you might just get to a different part of town and go to a after-school program in an area that you just don't ever happen to go to and meet people that you just never would have had the opportunity to meet in your own circles of home and life, work and so forth. So it's just such an enriching experience to realize the bigger part of the community that we all are in and those people that live there that
so
we
what I'm hearing
run
is
into.
This expands your horizons in your community. It gives you a sense of contribution to your community. It connects you with other people in a way you might not be connected, which maybe has to do with why you live longer and you're happier. And you can do your dream job if you do this search carefully and with some self-interest involved, like what's in it for me. Is that a dirty word to say, what's in it for me for this volunteer opportunity?
No, people think it is. When you say that, it's like, oh, I don't want to think about that. I'm just here to help. But again, if you think that way, you're going to get more out of it. You're going to be a better volunteer, and so the organization is going to benefit by you being more picky in particular and thinking what's in it for me.
What are the odds you'll just figure it out yourself sitting at home or surfing the internet versus talking to someone if you just say, I want to volunteer 10 hours a week to find the right opportunity?
Well, there are good websites to go to. I mean, there are clearinghouses online. We have a database online, so people can do that exploration. I think just before you do that, because it can be pretty overwhelming, what's out there, is to have this conversation with yourself first. Or your family. I mean, this is also you might want to
So you
involve
don't want
your
them to
family.
come see you, and people around the country don't want them to walk in and talk to you and take your time?
Would love it for that, but if people don't have the time, or if it's 2:00 in the morning and they say, I am totally motivated right now to find a volunteer opportunity, we're not going to be there.
But wouldn't you think? I mean, if it was you're telling your niece what to do, and she's 30, and wouldn't you advise her to go talk to someone rather than just surf the net?
I would. I just want people to do something if they want to do it. But I would definitely think talking with somebody is a really good idea.
Okay, so we got 10 people listening from San Francisco to Omaha, and they want to know where to begin, who to talk to. Where do they search? How do they find someone like you to talk to?
There are volunteer centers all over the country, and those are great places to. That's what we do at my job. We are a volunteer center, and we help people do exactly all the things that we've been talking about, and then find those opportunities. So we're a connector in that way. So I would say to contact a volunteer center.
How do you find a volunteer center? What do you look under?
If you would just go to the internet and Google volunteer center, it'll come up
in your community.
Yep.
It'll come up, and you're United Way. Is United Way doing this in most larger communities?
And that's the other place to go to is United Way. Some United Ways have a volunteer center internal to their organization like we do. Some volunteer centers are their own organization in a community, a nonprofit organization that United Way supports. But they're in great partnership together, and United Ways are all about volunteerism. So all the partner agencies that we have, we know about their volunteer needs, and so United Ways are an excellent resource.
Any other resource like a city office or something? Does the city provide volunteerism?
Not necessarily. Some volunteer centers are part of the city government, but not usually.
Okay.
There's also a national organization called HandsOn Network where they also help direct to local resources in everybody's community. So that's another national resource to go to.
Okay, before we say goodbye, any other things that you might want to throw in here, or have we covered the waterfront and any other things we might not have mentioned?
I can't think of anything else that we haven't mentioned, but I would just emphasize that I really do believe that there is something for everybody. I think thinking about volunteering, on your own with your family. We haven't really talked about family volunteering, but the more if families volunteer together, that's an excellent way to instill those great values in your children.
Okay.
And I even recommend having the kids decide what the family is going to do.
Good.
Because kids don't get to make choices very often for the family, so I think they should help that, or just youth volunteering on their own. The more we can get younger people involved, the better our future is going to be, because those are values that will stay with those kids into their adulthood, and we'll just have an even better society.
Kathy Martinson, thank you very much. Very enlightening, and I hope you'll join us on the next edition of Insights.